Good morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum, and a very warm welcome to our forum session today. My name is Hannah, and I will be moderating today's discussion. Our topic is Language Shapes Identity, the role of English and mother tongue in students' lives. Language is not only a means of communication, it shapes how we think, how we see ourselves, and how we interact with society in a multilingual country like Malaysia. Language plays an even more significant role in shaping students' identities. Joining me today are five panelists: Rina, Sean, Tini, Yana, and Farina. Each of them will be sharing their perspective based on personal experiences and academic understanding.
Okay.
Let us begin with opening statements from our panelists.
Thank you, Hannah. In my opinion, language is closely linked to confidence and also self expression. Students often feel most comfortable using their mother tongue because it is associated with home, emotions, and also familiarity. However, when it comes to English, many students feel pressure to perform perfectly, which affects their confidence and willingness to speak.
I agree with Rina. I also think language reflects a student's background and social environment. Students who are exposed to English early tend to be more confident using it, while others may feel left behind. This difference sometimes creates an invisible gap between students.
Right. From my perspective, language shapes identity through daily experiences. English is often seen as the language of success, education, and professionalism, while the mother tongue represents culture and belonging. When students feel forced to prioritize one language over another, they may struggle with their sense of identity.
I see. And I also believe that language also affects how students are judged by our society. And then students who speak fluent English are often viewed as more intelligent or capable. Even though language ability does not define intelligence, this perception can deeply influence students' self-esteem.
So for me, language is all about inclusions. When students feel that their language is respected in school, they feel accepted. But when their language is corrected harshly or ignored, they may feel excluded. And this emotional impact is often overlooked.
Thank you, everyone, for those insightful views. My first question is: how does language shape a student's identity, especially in a multilingual context like Malaysia?
In Malaysia, students grow up switching between languages depending on situation. This can actually strengthen their identity because they learn to adapt. However, problems arise when one language is seen as superior.
Yes, and when students constantly hear that English is more important, they may start undervaluing their mother tongue. Over time, this can affect how they see their own culture.
Okay, I would like to add that students sometimes develop different personalities depending on the language they use. For example, they may be more expressive in their mother tongue but quieter in English. This dual identity can be quite confusing.
Yeah, that's true. Some students even feel that they're not good enough in both languages, not fluent enough in English, but slowly losing proficiency in their own mother tongue.
And this is why identity and language cannot be separated. When students feel ashamed of their language, they may feel ashamed of who they are.
Thank you for the earlier insights. Now, let's focus more deeply on this issue. Does the strong emphasis on English education negatively affect students' relationship with their mother tongue? Or do you think both can coexist without conflict?
Right, I think the emphasis on English does affect students, especially emotionally. Many students slowly associate English with success and intelligence, while their mother tongue is seen as something casual or informal. So, over time, this mindset makes them feel that their own language is not good enough.
I do agree with Tini. I have noticed that some students feel embarrassed to speak their mother tongue in formal settings, like presentations or academic discussion. They worry that others might judge them as less educated.
I understand that concern, but I think the problem is not English itself. The issue lies in how English is positioned as the only language of success. If English is taught as an additional skill rather than a replacement, students wouldn't feel this pressure.
Absolutely. But in reality, many students don't experience that balance. From a young age, they are praised more for speaking English than for mastering their mother tongue. This creates an unconscious hierarchy of languages.
And that hierarchy can also be damaging. So, when a student feels their mother tongue is undervalued, they may start distancing themselves from their cultural roots, even within their own family.
That seems like a very important point, Farina. Do you think that this situation could lead to language loss, especially among younger generations?
Yes, definitely. When students rarely use their mother tongue in academic contexts, their vocabulary becomes limited. So they may still speak it, but only at a very basic level.
I have seen younger students struggle to express complex ideas in their mother tongue because they are so used to thinking academically in English.
However, I'd like to add that bilingualism itself is not the problem. In fact, students who are strong in their mother tongue often learn English more effectively.
Exactly. And research also shows that a strong foundation in the first language supports second language acquisition. And unfortunately, this connection is often ignored in our practice.
And this is why schools should encourage students to take pride in the mother tongue instead of treating it as secondary.
So, how can education systems maintain a healthy balance between English and mother tongue?
One way is by allowing code switching in discussions, especially during brainstorming. It helps students express ideas more freely.
Besides, teachers can also include bilingual materials or allow students to relate concepts using examples from their own culture and language.
I think assessment methods also matter. If exams only reward English proficiency, students will naturally prioritize English over their mother tongue.
Yes, and schools should celebrate multilingualism, not just fluency in English. And activities like cultural days or multilingual presentations can help as well.
And not only that, when students see their language represented and respected, they feel validated. And this emotional validation is also crucial for identity development.
To wrap up this section, do you think it is possible for students to value English and their mother tongue equally?
For me, I think it is yes, but it requires intentional effort from educators and also the institutions.
Not only that, students need reassurance that their mother tongue is not even a weakness.
I think English should be seen as a bridge, not a replacement.
Yeah, and balance is the key. One language should not erase the other.
Well, in my opinion, when language coexists, students can develop both confidence and cultural pride.
Thank you, panelists, for that thoughtful discussion. Now, let's move to the classroom context. How does language anxiety affect students' confidence and participation, especially in an English language classroom?
Language anxiety affects students more than we realize. Many students actually understand the lesson, but they choose to stay quiet because they are so afraid of making mistakes when they are speaking English.
Yes, and this fear usually comes from past experiences. Maybe they were corrected harshly before or laughed at by classmates. That kind of experience stays with students for a long time.
I agree. Language anxiety is not about ability, but fear of judgment. Some students would rather stay silent than risk embarrassment.
Hmm. And what's worrying is that teachers may misinterpret silence as lack of interest or low ability in the student, when in reality the student is just anxious.
Exactly. So, over time, this anxiety can also affect students' self esteem, and they start believing they are bad at English, even when that's not true.
Indeed, that does seem like a very important point. Do you think that this anxiety affects students differently at different levels of education?
Yes, especially at higher levels, where university students, for example, are expected to speak more academically, which increases their pressure.
I agree with Rina. At the theory level, students are afraid of sounding not smart enough in English, especially during presentations or discussions.
At the same time, younger students may not feel anxiety initially, but it develops when mistakes are overly highlighted instead of treated as learning opportunities.
That's why early classroom experiences matter so much. A supportive environment in primary school can prevent long-term language anxiety.
Moreover, if anxiety is not addressed early, it can become part of the student identity, and they start identifying themselves as weak language learner.
So, what classroom practices contribute to language anxiety?
I think one major factor is excessive correction. When teachers interrupt students too often to correct grammar, students will lose the confidence.
That's right, especially during speaking activities. It disrupts their flow and makes them overly conscious of mistakes.
I also think comparison plays a role. When teachers praise only fluent speakers, others may feel discouraged.
Hmm. Time pressure is another issue. Students may panic when they are forced to respond immediately without time to think.
And not only that, peer reaction also matter. Even small things like laughter or whispering can also make students withdraw completely.
Given these challenges, how can teachers help reduce language anxiety and encourage participation?
I think teachers should focus more on meaning than accuracy during speaking activities.
Besides, creating low-risk speaking opportunities helps, such as pair work or small group discussions instead of whole class speaking.
A teacher can also model mistakes themselves. When students see teachers making mistakes, they feel less afraid.
And positive reinforcement is also the key. Praising effort builds confidence and motivates students to try again.
And most importantly, teachers must create a safe space where mistakes are seen as part of learning and not failure.
Now then, to conclude this section, do you think that overcoming language anxiety is possible for most students?
I think yes, with the right support and environment.
It is because confidence grows when students feel heard, not judged.
Yeah, anxiety can be reduced, but it requires patience.
And yes, a supportive classroom can transform hesitant learners into confident speakers.
Now that we've talked about language, identity, and anxiety, now how about we focus on a key figure in all of this, the teacher? What role do teachers play in shaping students' language identity and attitudes toward language learning?
Right. As we know, teachers play a very powerful role. They are often at the first people who shape how students feel about a language. A supportive teacher can make students feel more confident, while a negative experience can discourage them for years.
I agree with Tini. Teachers set the emotional tone of the classroom. If students feel safe, they are more willing to take risks and participate in discussions.
I think teachers also influence how students precise good language. If teachers only value native like English, students may feel their own way of speaking is wrong.
Yes, and that expectation can be unrealistic. Not all students need to sound like native speakers to be effective communicators.
And teachers should also help students see language as a tool for communications and not a test of intelligence.
That is an important point, but how exactly do teaching practices influence students' confidence in using language?
So, one example is how teachers correct mistakes. Gentle correction after students finish speaking is much more encouraging than interrupting them.
I've noticed that when teachers focus on ideas first and language later, students feel more valued for their thoughts.
Teaching practices like group discussions and collaborative tasks also reduce pressure because students don't feel exposed.
I agree. Pair work allows students to practice speaking in a low anxiety environment before sharing with the whole class.
And even simple things like smiling, nodding, or giving verbal encouragement can also boost student confidence.
It seems that some teachers believe strict correction helps students to improve faster. What are your thoughts on this?
I think strict correction may help in writing, but in speaking activities, it can be harmful.
Yes, because speaking requires confidence. Overcorrection interrupts fluency and discourages participation.
Definitely, students may start focusing more on avoiding mistakes than expressing ideas.
Hmm. That's why correction should be purposeful. Teachers need to choose what to correct and when.
And not only that, balance is also important. Accuracy matters, but confidence always comes first.
Then, how can teachers support students' mother tongue while still teaching English effectively?
As for me, I think teachers can allow students to use their mother tongue during brainstorming or clarification stages. What do you think, Rina? Sorry.
I think this helps students understand content better and also reduce frustration.
Yeah, teachers can also use examples from students' cultures and languages to make lessons more meaningful.
Mm. When students see their culture reflected in lessons, they feel respected.
And respecting student language shows respect for their identity.
Do you think that teachers should act as role models in language learning?
Definitely. When teachers show enthusiasm for learning languages, the students would be inspired.
Teachers who admit their own mistakes show students that learning is a process.
This normalizes mistakes and reduces fear.
Mm. It also encourages a growth mindset in language learning.
And students learn not just from what teachers teach, but from how teachers behave.
Well then, to conclude this section, what is the one key responsibility teachers have in language education?
I think it is to create a safe and inclusive learning environment.
For me, it is to value communication over perfection. What about you, Shen?
For me, to respect linguistic diversity.
Mm. In my opinion, is to build students' confidence.
As for me, it is to help students see language as a bridge and not a barrier.
Well then, before we conclude, I would like each panelist to share one final reflection.
Okay, so language learning should empower students, not to silence them.
To conclude, multilingualism is an asset that should be celebrated.
And students should never feel they must abandon their identity to succeed academically.
Mm. For me, a safe language environment builds confident learners.
And lastly, respecting language means respecting people.
Thank you. It seems that we are coming to our end. Thank you to all our panelists for this meaningful sharing. Today's forum has shown us that language is more than just grammar and vocabulary. It is about identity, confidence, and belonging. With that, we conclude our forum session. Thank you everyone for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank